The Catholic channel SiriusXM 129 presents Sounds from the Spires with Dr. Jennifer Pascual, music director of St. Patrick's Cathedral.
And you're listening to Sounds from the Spires on the Catholic channel of SiriusXM 129. And I have here in my office at St. Patrick's Cathedral, Nicole Keller, who is from Ann Arbor, Michigan now. And she is a professor of music there. And she played a fabulous recital last night at St. Thomas Episcopal Church just up the street. So welcome, Nicole.
Thanks, Jenny. It's good to be here.
Yeah, good to see you. And I know you just played a recital here a little less than a year ago. So great to see you again and hear you again.
Yeah, I love being in New York, so it's always a pleasure to come back.
Yeah. And Nicole just moved to Ann Arbor, Michigan from Ohio, and she's now a professor of music at the University of Michigan. And so how long have you been there now? You moved in the summer, right?
Yeah, I moved at the end of June. I wanted to make sure I had a little bit of time to settle in before the craziness of the school year started. So I guess that's 7 months now. Yeah, I can't believe it.
And how is it going? I mean, you just finished one semester, right?
Yeah, it's gone really well. I mean, there's always a sort of period of adjustment when you enter into a giant new institution, but they have some really good structure set up for mentoring new faculty and all of that. And the students are really nice and really great, and all of my colleagues, so far are really, really great. So it's been a pretty good transition so far.
So are you doing solely lessons with students, coaching and teaching, or are you also teaching classes?
Teaching classes too, yeah. So I teach private lessons mostly to organ majors. I have one non-major, and then we have a variety of organ literature classes and sacred music classes. So last semester I taught organ pedagogy, which is required of our doctoral students, but some master students take it too. And this semester I'm teaching a sacred music course and a literature course as well. So kind of got to do it all.
Right.
Yeah.
And how many private students do you have?
I have this semester, I believe, 11 private students. Yeah, which is plenty. with 2 classes and a lot of traveling, it works out pretty well.
Goodness.
Yeah.
And those 11, do they range from bachelor's to doctorate students?
Yep, bachelor's to doctorate students. Yeah.
And do you have any non-majors as well?
One non-major. Yeah, she's doing really well, actually. Yeah.
What does a non-major do in the music department? So she's taking lessons, but what is her regular major?
I think she's an art history major, actually, in one of the other schools within the school. Yeah, but her mother is an organist, her sister is an organist. She grew up in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, so she's really quite active and has a good ear for the instrument. So it's really great working with her, yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what are the instruments like?
Well, we have a vast array of instruments. In my studio, we have a 3-manual Reuter instrument, which we're looking at, what its future is going to be right now. I think a few years ago, they'd started a campaign to replace that instrument eventually. It's time. So we're looking at how to reinvigorate that again. And then the other teaching studio, there's a 2-manual Laterno instrument that used to live in a small hall in the School of Public Health. And they used to have brown bag concerts in there at some point in time, but then they needed that space for something else, so we moved I think a really old molar out and put the Laterno in that teaching studio. We also have in a hall that's basically dedicated for the organ a Fisk organ that's modeled after a Zilbermann organ in Reutte, Germany, which is really, really wonderful. That's the Marilyn Mason organ, so it's a great instrument to teach on for historical purposes. It's this really great hall. And then we have 5 practice instruments in the music building. And then on Central Campus, in Hill Auditorium, of course, we have that magnificent 4-manual instrument there that has a pretty storied history. So, and a couple of practice instruments in that hall as well. So a wide variety of instruments and access to instruments around town in Ann Arbor. A beautiful new Richards Falx actually in the Episcopal Church in town. That's a really stunning instrument. I get to play that in about a month, so I'm looking forward to that now.
Wow. That's a lot of organs. I mean, that's more access than we had at Eastman at the time.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we don't have as many practice instruments, I think, but we've got, we have enough to keep the students busy. And most of them have church jobs, so a lot of them practice at their respective churches. But so far, we haven't had a sort of run on practice rooms. I'm waiting for that. I always feel like they should be practicing more. They should be fighting each other to get to the rooms. But yeah.
That's so funny. Have you had any degree recitals? And if so, where do they play those recitals?
Yeah, so we've had a couple, well, one off campus that I've been to at actually a lovely Laterno in a Catholic church near campus there. But most of them have been on campus so far. But we're open to, getting in Hill Auditorium is tricky. Everyone wants to have their recital there. And all the ensembles play there.
Yeah.
And the UMS Music Society has fantastic concerts there. There's something great every weekend. So we're constantly fighting for that space. So sometimes it's required that we kind of go outside and find somewhere else. So, yeah.
Do any of those instruments have no pistons, like, how we used to do it on the Van Dalen at Eastwood before it got pistonified?
The Fisk has no pistons. Yeah. So it's an education for the player and for the people who are pulling pistons as well. I remember those times on the Van Dalen. I learned so much repertoire and having to go to all those rehearsals with your colleagues, and you meet friends. That's how I met one of my best friends. Actually, we're still friends now.
That's right.
We met each other. We're like, "Can you pull pistons for me?" I was like, "Yeah," it all worked out. So yeah.
For those who are not organists listening, the whole pistons versus no pistons, it's like, if you watch a church organist at church and they push these buttons to change the registrations, and so you get different sounds, they just push a button. But before electricity, we used to have organs that you'd have to pull these stops out so that, or here in today's churches, you can push a tab, I guess.
Yeah.
But mostly it's pull out.
Mostly it's
draw
out.
I don't think you can push tabs without pistons, could you?
No, most of the time those are
Just pull out.
electrified.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You just pull these things out, but you have to have somebody help you if your hands are going. So you'd have somebody on your left, somebody on your right.
Yeah, and I think later you're going to play some Scheit Bergamasca that I did at Trinity Cathedral in Cleveland. Also no pistons, but the draw knobs are on either side of you, and they're really far away. So you'll hear some things in the recording where perhaps it'll take a little bit more time between variations than you'd think is needed. But you're just, it's a crazy system. So
yeah, that's really cool. Well, we're speaking about that now. Why don't we listen to that so they can get that sense of hearing the tracker organ and maybe those little sounds in the background.
Yeah.
So let's take a listen to the Bergamasca, and this is by Samuel Scheit, SSWV 560, performed by our guest today, Nicole Keller, who at the time that she recorded this, she was associate organist at Trinity Cathedral in Cleveland. And this is the 1977 Flentrop organ. And this was during your virtual pipe organ encounter during the pandemic, correct?
Yeah. The AGO did a organ fest, I believe that's what it called, and a bunch of us submitted some videos for that,
Okay, so we'll listen to the Bergamasca of Samuel Scheit now. And you just listened to the Bergamasca of Samuel Scheidt, SSWV 560, performed by our guest today, Nicole Keller, here on Sounds from the Spires on the Catholic channel, SiriusXM 129. I'm Dr. Jennifer Pascual, your host. And she was the associate organist at Trinity Cathedral in Cleveland, and that was the 1977 Flentrop organ during the pandemic for an AGO virtual pipe organ encounter. And now Nicole is at Ann Arbor, Michigan. She just moved this year to become a professor at the University of Michigan. Yeah. Are you into that football scene?
No. I like football. It's crazy on campus.
Is it really?
Yeah. I mean, it's cool, all the excitement around it. I have not been to a game. I've pretty much been told you really want to avoid Ann Arbor on a game day. So I think it's a commitment you're going to have to make if you want to go. So it's kind of fun to be a part of it for sure.
Right.
It's hard. My husband grew up outside of Cleveland, so he's a diehard Ohio State fan. So that was like a reckoning he had to come to with himself when we moved to Michigan. So he's living in enemy territory, so that's fine.
Incognito.
Exactly, yeah.
I've only been to Ann Arbor once, and I played in Ypsilanti at a Presbyterian church, but my host had driven me around the campus while the game was going on, so it wasn't crazy. Everybody was already in the stadium, but just seeing people park their cars and people charging money so that they can park on their lawns. It's crazy.
And people will park like 2 miles away and like walk into, it's really crazy.
Wow. Die hard.
Yeah.
Do you like it out there?
I like it, yeah. I mean, it's quiet, it's different. We were talking earlier, I'm a city girl. I grew up outside of Philadelphia, so that's kind of the vibe I'm used to. I'm loving being here in New York. And Ann Arbor has, it's a big university in sort of a small town, so it has that sort of city feel to it in many, many ways. But we live like 20 minutes south, so we're a little bit out in the country.
Right.
It's quiet, which is nice. It's a nice respite from the work as well. You can kind of come home and chill out and relax, which is good.
Yeah, kind of like New York, New Jersey.
Exactly. Yep.
But without that crazy traffic.
Yeah.
Or do you have traffic out there?
Well, what they call traffic, yeah, we do.
Do you miss Cleveland?
I do, yeah. I went there for my undergraduate, so it was never a place I kind of chose to live in many ways. I met my husband there, and we ended up settling there when I finished graduate school. And, Cleveland is a place where it really grows on you, kind of like Rochester, New York.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a lot going on there, though. The park system is really fantastic, and the arts scene is wonderful with the Cleveland Orchestra, Apollo's Fire, fantastic art museum. I mean, there's a lot there to do, and the people are really, really nice. So, we had a very nice life there. It's a good place to live your artistic life. But it was time for change, time for new adventures.
So what is Todd Wilson doing without you at the cathedral?
He has 2 really fantastic students at CIM now that are learning a lot, at the cathedral as interns. And I think one is the librarian as well. So they're learning a lot of repertoire, and they're on that fantastic new instrument that they have up front. So I think it's different, but I think they're managing just fine. Yeah. And they're really sweet and really good players.
Yeah. He's been there a long time.
He has, and I can't remember. It's been more than 10, less than 20. But yeah, it's been a little bit. Yeah.
Do you have time in Michigan and Ann Arbor to have a church job, or are you just completely overwhelmed by everything?
Yeah, the teaching is a full-time job for sure. And I know some people do that. They have the full-time teaching job and a church job. But I'm just still getting used to things, so I think I'm not going in that direction yet. I'm kind of enjoying my Sunday mornings, I have to say. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm jealous. Do you find time to practice?
It's tough. Yeah. I'm playing a lot around. I'm doing a lot of traveling. This is, I think, my 3rd week in a row traveling, another trip next week. Yeah. And all the travel kind of eats up your practice time in many ways, because you've got class prep and everything else that you have to catch up on in between. So that's a little bit tough. When the season is good, it's good, but finding that extra time is hard. So,
right.
Yeah.
So you're enjoying the time when you are away and practicing in these different spaces.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Precious.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. You had played a great recital yesterday at St. Thomas.
You. Yeah. The organ is really fantastic, the Dobson there. And I'd played the Skinner, Alien Skinner, a couple of times, and the Taylor Booty in the back, but this was my first time on the new instrument, and it's really glorious. It speaks so well into the space. A really great job by Dobson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you played really well.
Oh, thanks.
Let's take another listen to Nicole's playing. And she and I both belong to this organization called East West Organists, which was started, goodness, over 10 years ago. And East-West stands for people who graduated from Eastman and Westminster. And we had this project in 2020 during the pandemic. I guess it was Mark Paco's idea, right?
I think it was, yeah.
Or was it
I don't
a
remember,
collaborative
yeah.
effort? I don't really know. But we played the Orgelbuchlein between, I guess, 9 or 10 of us. I don't remember how many people were in the group.
I think there are 10 or
10?
11 of us.
Okay,
yeah,
10 or 11.
Yeah.
And we each picked 3 or 4 different of the pieces from the Orgelbuchlein of J.S. Bach. And so let's take a listen now to Christlag and Todesbanden, BWV 625. And you just listened to the Cantilena by Florence Price, and that was on the Mueller pipe organ, 2021, at Trinity Cathedral in Cleveland, Ohio. That was recorded in June of 2021. And just before the break, you listened to Christlag and Todesbanden, BWV 625 by J.S. Bach, and that was part of the Orgelbuchlein project of the East-West organist during the pandemic. So both of these were recorded during the pandemic, one a little bit later than the other, and both recorded by Nicole Keller, who is our guest here on Sounds from the Spires on the Catholic channel of SiriusXM 129, and I'm Dr. Jennifer Pascual, your host. So there are 2 pipe organs in Trinity Cathedral in Cleveland, Ohio, and you got to enjoy the latter one for a short bit before you left.
Yeah, and they actually, the installation happened during the pandemic,
Yes.
which in some ways was helpful, I suppose. There wasn't a lot of call for use of the space. And when they were bringing the organ in, there were just organ pipes everywhere around the cathedral. It was great. And you could walk in and just look in little corners and look in little pipe trays and see what was going on. So it was cool to watch the process happen. And the organ really is glorious. They were concerned because the pipes are up in the sides of the chancel area, how much sound was going to get out into the cathedral. But wow, I mean, it was such a successful project and just beautiful, beautiful sounds in that instrument.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they call it a heritage instrument because they used pipes from an older Aeolian Skinner from Richmond, Virginia, actually, I believe. Okay. And some pipes from a Skinner that were in an Episcopal church in Cleveland that closed, and they were storing them and finally put all these sounds together, and some new pipes from the Muller Company that works really, really stunningly well. Yeah, It's really beautiful.
Wow, very nice.
Yeah.
And now you're in Ann Arbor, Michigan, no longer in Cleveland, and teaching wonderful students and classes and giving them an education and just carrying on the legacy of what your predecessors had before you. And so you're in a great place at a good time. So
yeah, and it's, I suppose it can feel a little bit intimidating to, become part of such a legacy. But
Right.
I find it kind of exciting, actually, less intimidating. It's wonderful to walk into a program that has so much set up for you already. The curriculum is really great. Most people outside of academia don't understand how hard it is to get a new class inserted into a really full curriculum. So I'm really pleased that there's so many repertoire classes, so many sacred music classes, a real emphasis on improvisation, a graded improvisation set of courses. So that's really, really exciting to be a part of that.
Yeah. I guess the answer is yes, of course. But you find it helpful having had all this knowledge from Cleveland and also from Eastman and incorporating it all into what you're teaching now?
Yeah, it's interesting. This job feels like a culmination of all the things that I've done, all the different church jobs, from the big ones to the little weird smaller ones in some cases, and all the different things I did teaching at Baldwin Wallace as well. I mean, we didn't have as big of a curriculum, so some things you kind of do on the side or do as independent studies, and it's great to take all of that work and just insert it actually in one place.
Yeah.
As opposed to having 3 or 4 different jobs where you're doing all of these things, and now I can do them all in one place and share all these, these years of knowledge with students, which is really great.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember the last time you and I were talking that you might be looking for an assistant, because this is a lot of work for one person.
It's a lot of work, yeah. And I'm hoping at some point, we can get a search approved to have a second person there. It's a pretty full curriculum.
Yeah.
And for the size of the department that I would like, we're going to need at least 2 full-time tenure-track people to do all that. There's a lot of administrative stuff that goes on behind the scenes in academia, for sure. It takes a lot, and we've got 2 wonderful part-time people with us, actually. Peter Sykes, who's currently teaching at Juilliard and at BU as well, and he flies in and teaches some of our students and teaches our improv courses and some rep courses as well. And Jeremy Tarrant, who is the music director and canon precentor at the Cathedral Church of St. Paul in Detroit. So he brings a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience as well to the department. So I'm glad I've got those 2 there as well. So we're off to a really, really good start.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Now, I know you play harpsichord as well. Do you teach any harpsichord?
No, we have a harpsichord professor, actually.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, our department is interesting. It's really a multidisciplinary department. It's called the organ department, but it's really organ, harpsichord, carillon, which includes sacred music and early music as well. So it's a cool department. We all get along really well. And for the 3 full-time professors is Joe Gasho, who teaches harpsichord, and Tiffany Ng, who teaches carillon. Yeah, and Tiffany also went to our alma mater, Eastman, as an organ student, but is now teaching carillon. And we have very different approaches to things, but I think we're all really interesting musicians because we have our area of focus, but we're interested in other parts of the musical world as they sort of intersect with us as teachers and performers as well, which is fun.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Tiffany has been on my program a couple of times. Very interesting life, having to go up all these towers. And
I tell you, yeah.
Have you tried it out?
Not yet. I've been up there and I've kind of been inside one of the bells, but she's a pretty impressive musician. Yeah.
Gotta have tough fists to play.
I know.
She must have calluses on the bottom of her. Yeah, that's very cool. And you're in a wonderful place in a university, and people who are studying strive to have these great jobs, like a university position
Yeah.
or a great church position. And what advice would you have for these youngsters,
Oh, gosh.
that want to be you someday?
Don't do it. No, just kidding. you know, um, be flexible
Yeah.
and keep your standards really high for yourself.
Hmm.
And cultivate as many skills as you can.
Yeah.
And I think there was a time, at least in this country, where you could just be an organist and find a full-time job and kind of make a living that way. And I think, as you have to be an organist, you have to be part administrator,
Yep.
you have to be a grant writer, you have to write articles for whatever, for musical journals if you're an academic, or for whatever online newsletter at your church, or those things. You have to manage other people if you're head of a large program.
Right.
You have to teach.
Yeah.
I don't care what you're doing, whether you're in academia or you're in church music especially, you are teaching all the time.
Yeah.
So cultivating this wide variety of skills and not letting it affect the quality of your playing. I think that's one of the toughest things to get used to. So finding a way to make that just a part of your life and being committed to that forever.
Right. Yeah, that's good advice.
Yeah, it can be really, really tough. And there are times, as you just don't have enough time to practice. And you get into these ruts where you're playing the same music all the time, and you don't realize that your skill levels are slowly dropping because you're not pushing yourself enough. And hopefully you find these times where you can get a little bit more practice done. Actually, we did that during COVID.
Yes.
But look, all this time to practice the things I want to play and make all these recordings. It was as horrible of a time as it was nice to have a little bit of a respite from the rat race we were in,
Right.
To sort of reevaluate some things. So yeah, that would be my advice, I guess. And keep practicing. Never stop practicing.
How do you balance all of that? And be good to yourself, stay healthy, practice, and do everything else you're supposed to do as a professor.
Yeah, I'm really lucky. I don't get sick a lot, actually. So that's sort of in my favor. I try to keep really busy. I like to be busy. I like to be moving around. I'm traveling a lot now, which I actually love. Someone texted me the other night and said, "Oh, your schedule looks crazy." And I was like, "Oh, it's actually kind of exciting." But staying active and doing air quotes fit, whatever that means for you. Everybody's a little bit different, and I'm in a little bit of a rut with that right now. But I like to work. So for me, working a lot for long periods of time, and then I take a little bit of a time off, and then I get back to working, and that's kind of what gives me energy, And we have a lot of discussions these days about balance and work-life balance and all of these things, and I tend to roll my eyes when I hear people talk about that. But for me, I'm happy when I'm working, you know? And I have other parts of my life that I try to keep intact, spending time with friends, spending time with my husband, all of those things. But as long as I've got, some project that's keeping my mind going and keeping my body going, I'm pretty happy, actually.
That's good.
I don't mind the work as long as it's fulfilling in some way. Yeah.
That's great to hear. Very positive.
Oh, I try.
And you're always smiling every time I see you.
Oh, well, there are times that are really hard. It's not always easy. There are life events that certainly happen, but I think when you have work that's fulfilling, it actually helps with that. It's a respite from the life things sometimes, and life is a respite from the work stuff, And I think if you can manage whatever balance for you that makes work, that's what keeps things going.
Yeah, that's great. Good advice.
Yeah.
Let's take a listen now to some more music, and this is the Du Parmenu. And maybe after we listen to it, we will talk about it, because there's a story behind that. So this is Du Parmenu of Olivier Messiaen from La Nativité du Seigneur, and that's at Bale's Recital Hall at the University of Kansas at Lawrence. And this was from April of 2011, and Nicole played this during the Mikhail Taraverdiev International Organ Competition, and this was the North American round. And you just listened to Meine Seele erhebt den Herrn, BWV 648 by J.S. Bach. And just before the break, we listened to Du Parmenu of Olivier Messiaen from La Nativité du Seigneur at Bales Recital Hall, University of Kansas at Lawrence. And that was from April of 2011, when Nicole played the North American round of the Mikhail Taraverdiev International Organ Competition. And Nicole is our guest today. She's here in my office at St. Patrick's Cathedral, and I'm Dr. Jennifer Pascual, and you're listening to Sounds from the Spires on the Catholic channel of SiriusXM 129. So, two great stories there. So tell us first about the Mikhail Taraverdiev competition. That must have been exciting to be a part of that.
It seems like forever ago now, but it was really cool, and I was surprised, when I got past the first round, and then I was going to Russia. I mean, it was kind of cool in this little small part of Russia in Kaliningrad, that's sort of in between Germany and Poland. It was a really interesting experience. It was my first time in Russia. The host for the competition was really great, Vera, who you know. Yeah, it was a really good experience, a different experience for sure. And the Du Parmenu that you played was as a result of my winning that round and going to the competition. I came back to the University of Kansas and played a recital there, which was really fun. But yeah, I met some really interesting people there, and it was a cool experience. It was different. It's just being in Russia. It's a different experience for sure.
Yeah. I wonder what they're doing now with getting people over there from the United States to be part of that competition. Is that even happening? Do you know?
It's happening, actually. Excuse me. I have one student who just sent in a recording from it, but she's actually from China, so I imagine it'll be a little bit different, easier in some ways, maybe for her to get over there. But I know they're doing it. I don't know all the particulars around it, But Vera's so committed, and I hope it's a success for her for sure.
Yeah, the last time I talked to her, I know that she said it's getting more and more difficult for American citizens and Russians to go back and forth for musical events such as this. So,
yeah, I bet. Yeah.
But that's great that you were able to go to Kaliningrad.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was sort of a life-changing event in many ways. And part of that, I won a prize for, I can't remember the name of the prize, for a promising young artist, and I got a recital in Kazakhstan.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, in Astana, Kazakhstan. That was an interesting experience. It felt so exotic to be there. The people were so kind there. It was really wonderful, and I played a really wonderful instrument there too. So it was a great experience all around that. Yeah.
Right. Do they have a lot of instruments in Kazakhstan?
No.
What did you play on?
Oh gosh, I knew you were going to ask this. I think it was a German instrument at the Kazakh University for the Arts that was there. I called it Big Red. It's a big red. Oh gosh, I'm embarrassed now. Yeah, it's a German instrument, I'm pretty sure. It was fun to play, and I did a master class there. And part of my prize was to do a CD recording there, but I was so jet lagged. I was so tired. The music on the page looked like it was crawling across the page. And I was doing the recording. It wasn't a horrible success, so yeah. But it was a great experience, and the students were really wonderful. The teacher there was really, really, really wonderful, so I really enjoyed it, yeah.
That always is a question in my mind with locations such as that, where organ is not a huge thing in the music world, how students have the opportunity to practice. I guess they practice on that one instrument. And
I think there were some practice instruments there too. And Astana's the capital town, so it was a bigger town. But yeah, I'm not sure what was going. I mean, it's a big country.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure what was going on in the rest of the country. But a lot of the teacher there, Sultanat, she studied in Germany, so I think people sort of travel to Europe and then come back and
Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Very cool.
Did you get one of those angels from the competition?
No, you only get an angel if you win.
Oh, so I've seen pictures of that online.
Yeah, the amber angel.
Angel, yes, right. Yeah. Very cool. Tell us just a little bit about the Flentrop at Trinity Cathedral Episcopal Church in Cleveland, the Meine Seele erhebt den Herrn that you played just after the break, that you recorded there. It's a really nice instrument for all this earlier rep.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of during the middle of this sort of exploration of these historic instruments, and it was one of the earliest ones, I think, to come to the United States. And I believe Fenner Douglas was partially responsible for bringing that to the cathedral. Yeah. So it's a great example of sort of Baroque Dutch North German organ building. It's a fun instrument to play all that repertoire. The voicing is just really stunning. There's a principle on every manual that's just beautiful, actually. So it's fun to play a lot of that repertoire there and experiment with some of those sounds. So I enjoyed making that recording. I was one of my first sort of cell phone recordings. I didn't even have it in portrait mode like you're supposed to. I didn't know anything about those things there. And you're hidden up on a back wall. You go up this scary spiral staircase to kind of get up there. So it's a nice sort of intimate, hidden place, which is really fun to play a lot of that repertoire. It speaks out into the cathedral really quite well.
Yeah, very cool. And let's take a listen now to Aus tiefer Not schrei ich zu dir, BWV 687. And this was Nicole playing this on the harpsichord. And we'll talk about the Klavierübung project in a second. And you just listened to the Aus tiefer Not schrei ich zu dir, BWV 687, recorded by our guest today, Nicole Keller, and that was part of a Bach Klavierübung project that was done during the pandemic. And you're listening to Sounds from the Spires on the Catholic channel of SiriusXM 129. Nicole's our guest. I'm Dr. Jennifer Pascual, your host. And that was a very interesting project that you all did. A lot of folks who are graduates from Eastman, and you played this whole thing. You played on different instruments, and of course you played on the harpsichord, and you did a little bit on the organ as well. Tell us about this project.
Yeah, it was during COVID, and we were all trying to find ways to stay connected with each other,
right,
and like stay practicing in some fashion. So we came up with this idea to do all the smaller settings of Klavierübung 3. These are all the settings that are without pedal. And so we decided, well, let's do them all on a bunch of different instruments, organ and harpsichord and a bunch of different organs. And we sort of decided who wanted to play what. And this is when we were all learning how to record and video ourselves.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was hilarious. I had when I played at the chapel at Baldwin Wallace, I had a music stand on top of the console with my iPhone hanging off the music stand so I could get like a downward view of because I saw someone else do that. I was like, I got to figure out how to make that happen.
Yeah.
So we had all this time to kind of experiment with these different things, and it was really fun. And the example you played, I played on my harpsichord that I have at home, and I remember it was the summertime. It was so hot, and the air conditioning in the house was making too much noise for the recording, so I had to turn it off.
Oh no!
And it was one of the hottest days in the summer, and I just could not get this piece out. And I was just sweating, and we're videoing, so you didn't want to sweat, and I was so frustrated and like almost in tears. But it kind of went with the piece aus tiefer Not out of the depths, and I was trying so hard to do this. I hopefully it fed into the affect of the piece, and it worked out really well. But that was a really cool project, actually, and it's on my website. I think it's on my YouTube page as well, and just really interesting different settings with Tim Olson, who's at University of North Carolina School of the Arts in Salem College, and Jackie Yost, who also lives down in North Carolina, and James Bobb, who's at St. Olaf College in Minnesota, and he did some things on organ and harpsichord as well. I mean, it was really fun and really cool, and those pieces don't get played as often, I think, as they should. They're really great music. I mean, the big settings are kind of the exciting ones, but these, I think, have an intimacy that we sometimes miss on the organ.
Yeah, really cool project.
Yeah.
Very interesting story. And so what's your next concert? You're traveling a lot. Some interesting cities that you're going to be going to.
Yeah. Next week, I'm going to Fresno, California, actually, for the Lawrence International Keyboard concert series that they have there. It's actually my first time playing in California, I think. Yeah, on a Martin Ott instrument. And I've never played one of Martin's instruments, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
And any abroad trips in the near future?
Nothing yet. Yes, everything in the States for right now. But keeping my fingers crossed, hopefully. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm following where you're going on Facebook, so you're always posting nice pictures of the instruments and the places you go. So keep it up. Great work.
Oh, I will, It keeps me connected to people, so people seem to enjoy looking at things. So.
Well, Nicole, it's been great to have you here on Sounds from the Spires. It's been great to see you and spend some time with you and hear your lovely concert yesterday at St. Thomas. And I hope to see you again in person soon. And if not, I'll see you on Facebook and follow your great adventures and the great things that you're doing at the University of Michigan.
Oh, thanks so much. Thanks for having me. It's always great to talk to you.
Yeah, likewise. And good luck with everything. I know this is your first year, but you're in a great place at a great time. Yep. So I know you're only going to do great things for teaching these students who are going to become the future Nicole Kellers.
No. Let's hope they become better than the Nicole Kellers I am.
You're doing a great job. So thank you for all you do.
Oh, you're welcome.
We'll finish out the hour by listening to Festal March by Florence Price, and that was part of an East-West organist project during the pandemic. And this was recorded on the Trinity Episcopal Cathedral organ, the Mueller pipe organ from 2021. And thank you to Nicole, and thank you to Robert for editing, and stay tuned next week for Sounds from the Spires on the Catholic channel of SiriusXM 129. Have a great week.